All right, my friends, let's get it going. Let's get it going. I'm super excited that you all are here. I'm not sure if any of yours, this is your first time. If it's any of your first time of the series, can you do me a favor? Smash one of these reaction buttons if this is your first out of the 3 that you have attended, just to let me know. We got a few first timers. I like it. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Excited to have you. Really pumped to have you. So, my friends, my name is James Robolata. I'm a professional speaker. I'm an author. I'm a coach, and I'm also a podcast host. It's a new thing for me. It's fun working it into the intro, and I am super pumped. We've been doing a 3-part series. This is the 3 of 3, but fear not, my friends. As long as you register, we'll make sure that you get all 3 parts. So if this is your first one, it's all good. You can watch the other 2. But we've been doing a 3-part series about how to build the best teams, and I'm super excited. The first 2, we talked a lot about commitment in the first one, and commitment and leadership, love and leadership. The next one, we talked about feedback, different feedback styles and ways to give courageous feedback. And in this one, my friends, as promised, the last 2 were a little bit more head. This one's a little more heart. And so if you're here, buckle up, y'all. Let's jump in. Today, we are talking about leading through uncertainty. So today, we're talking about leading through uncertainty. Now, I have potentially started another one of these off like this, but I want to start this one off the same way, where I have a lot of food quirks, things that I eat in unique manners. I eat things in peculiar ways. For example, whenever I eat pizza, and by the way, the only real pizza is New York pizza, Chicago sit down, okay? I'm just playing. I love Chicago style pizza. It's just more like a tomato parfait. Like, why don't you just call it that? You know what I mean? But it's delicious. But still, we out here shooting shots earlier, friends. But whenever I eat pizza, what I do is I rip the crust off, and then I spread the crust open with my thumbs, and I pour Parmesan cheese in it, and I eat that first while the rest of the pizza cools. I literally got that from my mama. Y'all, mom does the same thing. Adorable. Shout out to Mama Robolata. Also, whenever I eat chocolate layer cake, what I do is I do a little surgery because the icing is the best part. The cake part is just the vessel in which the icing arrives at my love. And so what I do is I do a little surgery. I cut all the cake part out of the way first. And then I leave the glorious icing walls to the end and eat those last, because I've never said something's too rich or too sweet. No, I like my chocolate encased in chocolate, injected with chocolate. Don't know if we have any chocoholics out there with me, but these are a couple of foods that I eat in unique ways. And I'm wondering if you have any foods that you eat in unique manners. Do you mash 2 random ingredients together? Do any of you eat anything in a peculiar way? Could you let me know in the chat if you do? Can you let me know in the chat if you do? I would love to see if I am alone right now or if I got some people out here. Scott, deep dish is delicious. Again, just tomato parfait. What are some foods that you all? I love it, Christina. You rip the cupcake top off and then flip it over to make a cupcake sandwich. That's adorable. Here's what I do. Since the icing is the best part, I rip the bottom of a cupcake off. I throw it off a dock and I shove the icing into my mouth. I'm just kidding. I would never waste food. Do any of you mash 2 random ingredients together? Anybody out here, when you're having cereal, do you pour the milk into the bowl first? I know there's at least one of you that does that. Anybody eating pickle and peanut butter sandwiches? Cottage cheese on top of a baked potato? Here we go. You eat the Nutty Buddy and layer. That's a pro tip, Jenna. And thank you for being here. Sugar and spaghetti sauce. Rebecca, I'm intrigued. I would try it, but I'm intrigued. You bite into Kit Kats. Hold up. And you just bite, like willy-nilly, just bite into like all 4 Kit Kats like a savage, my friends? Is there no order in life? Come on. I love it. A bagel with peanut butter, honey, and raspberry. That sounds outrageous. I love it. Always dip my turkey Bravo in cheddar broccoli soup. Josh, that sounds like a pro tip. I don't know what a turkey Bravo is, but I will say bravo to what you just said. Okay, thanks, friends. My jokes are awesome. Hot dogs with peanut butter on the bun. Peanut butter on the bun, that is actually delicious. Cranberry sauce on vanilla ice cream. Susan, this is your season, my friends. Get that cranberry sauce. I love these quirks, my friends, and I love starting that way because all of us do something weird. Maybe your weird isn't food related. Maybe you do something else, right? Maybe you like I don't know, stick your finger in your belly button and smell it, okay? I don't know what you do, friends, but we all have something awkward that we do and it's fun and then we start that way. Aaron, you look mortified. So I love it. I'm here for it. But my friends, we all have a weird, and it's important that we start that way because leadership is humanity. And we often forget about the humanity of leadership in the midst of deadlines, in the midst of obligations, in the midst of everything else that's happening in the world. And we got so-and-so telling us, well, Q3 is coming to an end and we got to get it in, or we got our baby crying over here. We got this or that, all of these things. We sometimes forget about the humanity around us on our teams. And we can't forget about that humanity. A lot of times individuals feel like, well, they just feel like I feel like nobody cares around here. No one knows anything about me. No one wants to hear anything from me or whatever. They just want me to come in, do my job and leave. And that's it. But that's not the way teams are formed. And so I love starting with these quirks because there's so much power in our stories. And our stories connect us. Stories lead to connection. Connection leads to trust, and trust leads to loyalty. Story leads to connection, connection leads to trust, and trust leads to loyalty. And so storytelling in leadership is important. Storytelling and leadership is important. And that's something that I learned from the jump in becoming a leader. Even when I think back to my first taste of leadership, which was as a college student leader, I was an RA. I don't know if anybody else was an RA out there, but right, being an RA and then getting into my full-time positions after that, that provided the found work. That's foundation and groundwork for those of you playing at home. But it provided the foundation for which my leadership growth came off of. I don't know where your first taste of leadership was, but I know for me, I learned early that, hey, I have some great leadership qualities. I have some things that I do pretty well right off the bat, but I have some other things that I don't know if I should be proud of or if I should talk about. And so let me ask you all a question. If I had somebody here standing next to me and I told you this person's a leader, get over here, pal. I told you this person's a leader. Can you do me a favor? In the chat, can you let me know what are some of your favorite leadership characteristics that other people often possess? You know, things like integrity or honesty, some of those things. What are some of your favorite qualities that when you meet somebody like, oh, this person's this, they're probably a leader or on their way. Let's see what we got. And Jeff, I first read that as divisiveness, and I was like, interesting first one, Jeff. I got you now, though. Empathy, follow through, charisma. They're open, right? They're tuned in. They're good servant leaders, love servant leadership, humble, genuine, kind, right? They get it done, direct, accountable, great listener, courage. These are awesome, transparent, unbiased, organized, right? They give appreciation, right? We know the qualities that great leaders possess. We can list these for a while if we wanted to, but instead, let me tell you about myself. I'm a disorganized procrastinator who's awkwardly friendly at parties and who's cocky around my fellow professionals. Yay! Y'all, I'm a little disorganized, okay? There's a reason the camera's facing this way, okay? You don't need to see over there. That's not for you. That's not for you. It looks like I sat a toddler on top of a stack of papers and the kid just started going like this. That's my organizational style. Some of you out there are super type A, and I love you for that, right? We got my list makers out there. We got people with more highlighters than I knew existed. We got bullet journalers, people who swim in Microsoft Excel, people who love when everything has its place, right? That's amazing. You're wonderful individuals, and you're grateful that we're not in the same space right now because I would 100% mess with your stuff. Also, I'm a little bit of a procrastinator, but I think we should talk about that tomorrow. What do you think? Oh, are you kidding me? Does the man get funnier? Have we peaked? I don't know. Okay. All right. I regret that. Let's keep it moving. I'm also awkwardly friendly at parties. I'm the guy at the end of the night when everybody is leaving. I'm kind of over here on the wall like, hey. The people throwing the party be like, James, what are you still doing here? I'm like, I don't know. It's finally quiet. Perhaps we could engage in a deeper dialogue. People are like, no, James, we're going to bed. I'm like, oh, okay. And the guy just lingers. I share a little bit too much about myself. You've noticed. I'm also cocky around my fellow professionals. I got my master's from Clemson University. Let's go Tigers. I got my master's from Clemson University, and right after I got my first professional job ever, post-master's degree, first job with benefits, I walked in, first job ever, like it was an old West saloon. Boom! I walked in, I said, hey, feel free to read the top of this diploma. It says master on it. Okay, what do you need me to do? Supervise them, advise them, organize that, run this, set that up, process, do this, whatever, hold them accountable. Yeah, whatever. I'll do it all. I'm a damn boss. Now, there's probably a good chance that all that cockiness was just to cover up my intense insecurity because I was actually worried I wasn't going to be good at my job. Well, let's not worry about that, right? But it's interesting though, because when I have you think about the qualities of leader, you laid some of these beautiful things over here, right? They have influence, they are just, right? They follow through on their commitments, right? And some of these great, they're unbiased, they give appreciation, a great list that you came up with over here. And I have some of those things, but I also have these other 4 things. And I don't shy away from those 4 things with the teams that I have the opportunity to lead, because I believe I owe it to those teams to let them know where I am still a work in progress. Because I believe that as a leader, it is my job to hold people accountable to them being better, right? I am partly responsible for their growth. And so I want people to let me in so I can help them in their growth journey. But it would be hypocritical of me not to do the same in return. And so I let some of the individuals that I work with, let them know that, hey, I'm a little disorganized, but I'm working on it. Feel free to call me out on it as I'm trying to get better, right? I let some individuals know ways that they can help support me in my growth also. Because as leaders, it's not only your job to impact others' lives, it's your job to let them impact yours. As leaders, it's not only your job to impact others' lives, it's your job to let them impact yours. But we can't get to impact if you don't first open yourself up to it. And that's what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about something called authentic leadership, a leadership style I was pretty sure I came up with. And then I did a quick Google search. It turns out some guy wrote a book called Authentic Leadership. That's fine. It was a great book. It's by a guy named Bill George. Shout out to the people with 2 first names. I'm here for it, right? Bill George wrote a book called Authentic Leadership. I recommend it to you if you like books. If you don't like books, I'd skip it. But still, the thing is that he talks about it being the self-awareness approach to leadership. So there's going to be some moments in our time today, friends, where we're going to get a little bit deeper, and I hope you'll come with me in some of those places, because I believe that authentic leadership is what we need right now in 2020. Authentic leadership is what is going to help us put out the dumpster fire that is 2020. It's going to help us navigate it, and it's a tool that we can't forget that we have. Here's how we're going to talk about it. We're going to break authentic leadership down into 3 parts. We're going to talk about how authentic leaders are purposeful, how they own who they are, and how they are real. All right. And so let's talk about purposeful first. When I talk about being purposeful, what I mean by that is that as a leader, your intent will influence your impact. As a leader, your intent will influence your impact. In other words, the reason why you got involved in the first place, that's going to dictate what you actually will do within your role. Perfect example of this. How many of you have ever worked alongside somebody who was only in their role because it was going to look good on their resume? Right? Feel free to raise your hand or smash one of those emojis or whatnot, or one of those reactions, right? How many of you have ever worked alongside somebody who's only in their role because it was going to look good on their resume? Yes, thank you so much, friends. I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you. And so we know these individuals, right? They're only there for the pay bump, for the next accolade and things like that. We know these folks. We know these folks because the way they show up, they're not raising the bar, they're barely smacking their head on it. They're out there delegating things to everybody else, and then they're showing up the day the project's due talking about, look what we did. And you're like, you don't even go here, right? We're talking to these individuals who love to get all of the shine, but actually didn't do much of the work to get there. These are the individuals that love to sit in the back of your meetings and complain and shout ideas that they think other people should do, yet they've never actually stepped up to do anything themselves. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know every organization that's here on the call with me right now, but I believe none of you have a position at your companies and at your institutions called wise old sage. right? I don't think we hire for that anymore. That's not a thing. And so we need individuals who are interested in committing to the work. And so here's what I want you to reflect about. Here's what I want you to reflect about. I want you to think about two different types of people that you have interacted with. The first type of individual, this is the person that gets it. I want you to think about who is maybe one of the individuals that inspired you to be where you are today. Maybe they were a really great boss, a really great mentor, a really great leader, a really great coach. But there's someone who you've worked alongside and you're like, this person gets it. The way that they made you feel like you could, right? They led with love. They didn't lead with fear. There were individuals that inspired you. They gave you the growth to try, to succeed, to fail, to win, to get back up and stuff like that. Can you all name someone like that? If you can name someone like that, smash a reaction button for me. Smash a reaction button for me if you all got someone like that in your hearts right now. Amazing, amazing. I appreciate it. Thanks, Mason. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Liz. I appreciate you all. Christina, I see you all out here. So many of you said yes to that. Amazing. That's one person. Now let's talk about the other person I want you to think about. How many of you have ever worked alongside somebody or been managed, supervised by someone who you would say didn't get it? Right? The kind of person that you almost want to pull them aside and be like, are you happy here? You doing okay? Right? That kind of individual where we're like, do you see why this could matter? Do you get it? This kind of individual who sometimes they lead with fear and not love. Sometimes they only care about the accolades. They only care about the results. They don't care about the process. These individuals that are purely focused on getting the job done because work is work, and that's all it is. They don't care about the development piece. You've worked alongside some of that. Randall, thank you. Appreciate you. How many of the rest of you have worked alongside someone like that before? You could hold someone. Amazing, amazing. If you could write their full name and their company in the chat, that would be great right now. Let's burn some bridges. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. So my friends, here's what we're talking about. You have these two individuals, the person that gets it and the person that doesn't get it, right? You have these two individuals. So now if I were going to ask those around you, individuals that you have the opportunity to work with, maybe individuals that you manage or supervise, individuals that manage or supervise you, coworkers, peers, et cetera, et cetera. If I were to ask them the simple question of which one are you, what would they say? Which one are you? Are you someone who is actively trying to uplift others, who's recognizing that development, commitment, those kind of things are a process, and we're allowed to let people you have to let that process play out a little bit. There's got to be a little bit of patience in there. Or are you someone over here that's more interested in the shine, who's more interested in the, we'll just get it done because I said to get it done, those kind of things. If I were to ask those around you about you, what would they say? I need us to revisit our purpose. Revisit our purpose and let it serve as a bulldozer that's going to push us through some of the frustrating aspects of leadership. 2020 is the year of other duties as assigned. Okay? 2020 is the year of other duties as assigned. And so sometimes it's hard to see our purpose. Because the reason why we got involved, maybe we can't exactly do it the way we always wanted to be able to do it. And now it's got to shift up a little bit. It's a frustrating time. But it is a critical moment. Revisit your purpose and let it serve as a bulldozer that's going to push you through some of the frustrating aspects of leadership. If you have the ability to zoom out and see the bigger picture, then you're more likely to be able to get a lot of the annoying grunt work done. Right? You're more likely to be like, I got to get my hands dirty over here because I know it matters, right? It's just like if you look at a car, look at the sexy engine. No one ever is like, open up the hood and show me the engine. No one's ever like, open up the hood and show me the gas lines, show me where the grease is, show me the oil, right? But the grease and the oil is what keeps the engine moving. And sometimes we got to get our hands dirty. But if we remember the whole purpose, it's not as big of a deal. And so when we think about this moment right now that we are in, when we think about this moment that we are in, empowering others is critical. Empowering others is critical, but we also can't be that person that's just always like, we're going to do it. We can figure it out. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to go move, move, move. No, that person sucks sometimes. It is also really critical that we acknowledge people's feelings, acknowledge where people are at right now. For example, myself, y'all, I'm really lonely. I'm really lonely. This is hard. I miss my friends. When this thing's all over, I'm hugging all y'all. Okay. I mean, I'll ask for permission first, but buckle up, it's coming. And so, right. Like, but I miss my friends. I miss my family. I got friends that are 3 blocks away from me that I'm not allowed to see because Minnesota was like, you will not see anybody outside of your house. I'm like, no, right. And it's like, it's sad. It's hard. It's also scary in some ways. And so, we sometimes need to acknowledge, and by sometimes I mean always, acknowledge what people are going through. We don't need to sit in that forever, though. We got to keep it pushing, but acknowledge where people are at. Let people feel heard. Let people feel seen so that people feel less alone and less crazy. And then once you acknowledge those feelings and we see that actually more of us are in it than we thought, then we can kind of be like, okay, so we're all in it. What are we going to do to climb out of this? Acknowledge first and then come up with the plan. It's easy to look at this year as a glass half empty, right? But my buddy Justin Jones Fosu has a quote that I love. And he says, James, it's not if the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. It's how do you fill the damn glass, right? And so at some point we have to recognize that we got to fill the glass. And we do that by revisiting our purpose. Letting it serve as a bulldozer that's going to push us through some of the frustrating aspects of change, because the bigger picture matters. Authentic leaders are purposeful. Authentic leaders also own who they are. Owning who you are is the hardest thing we'll talk about today, because owning who you are involves putting every single facet of your life in front of a mirror. And I don't know about y'all, but I personally find mirrors to be horrific places. And I'm not just talking about putting your physical appearance in front of a mirror. No, I'm also talking about putting your choices in front of a mirror, putting your ego, your friendships, your relationships, your faith, your communities, all these kind of things in front of a mirror and truly seeing it. But that's hard because mirrors don't lie. So now when we think about this concept of owning who we are, when we think about this concept, I think there's some moments where it sneaks up on us where we don't even recognize it. For example, I think it happens during the best conversations of our lives. And I think the best conversations of our lives all occur after the hour of 9, 10, 11 o'clock over milkshakes, all right? Over huge stacks of pancakes, over whatever part of the country you are from, right? We're talking Denny's, IHOPs, Waffle Houses, Steak and Shakes, In-N-Outs, taco trucks. We're talking about wherever, late night diners, whatever your late night move is, a guilty Taco Bell run. No one's judging you, my friends. I'll take some Crunchwrap Supremes while you're there. But the thing is that these are the moments that we have with our friends or loved ones where we all roll out and we look like a hot mess. You know what? Your makeup gave up hours ago. Your makeup gave up hours ago. Whatever product you put in your hair has been done for the day, okay? You're rolling out, your hat's askew, your socks don't match. It doesn't matter because you're with people that you love. I love these moments because the conversations always get a little bit deeper because we're all a little bit sleepier and we're also all a little closer. I love these moments. I know for me and my friends, back when we could do this, we would go to Applebee's for half-price appetizers because we got it like that, okay? This program's sponsored by Applebee's. That's a lie. But we would go to Applebee's for half-price appetizers, and there would always be one dude that would start the conversation off with something simple like, yo, bro, you'll never believe what happened to me last week. We'd share an embarrassing story about himself. What we don't recognize, though, when we share embarrassing stories about ourselves, it actually kind of subconsciously helps us own who we are. Here's what I want you to do, my friends. In the chat, can you do me a favor? In 5 words, in 5 to 7 words, can you tell me an embarrassing story about yourself? Can you tell me an embarrassing story? For example, fell upstairs at work, right? Accidentally took screenshot, didn't realize was on, wasn't muted, right? Sent private message to everyone, those kind of things. What do you got for me? First kiss fell into a tuba. Well, Dan failed. I don't know if we need to hear any more. I have all of the questions and none of the answers. Fell on stage as crocodile. That's incredible. Replied all. Yes, Lindsay, been there. Yep. Peed pants often while unlocking the front door. Jessica, sometimes it's just not enough time and the deadbolt's obnoxious. Yep, wrong way in a band performance. Oh no, tripped on a subway in New York with luggage. Emily, I have been there. Flipped off scooter in the crosswalk. We got a couple of scooter incidents over here. Toddler had no filter on mouth. Brown, I wonder when that happened. I love this. Lost ring, crawled around on hands and knees. That's terrible. Bird pooped in my mouth in front of a crowd. Beth, I don't have words. I don't have words. This is a great list of stories over here, my friends. This is a great list of stories. You all had to share a story. It's only fair that I share one in return. It's only fair that I share one in return. Some of you know this about me. Others you are about to learn. At my senior prom, the culminating dance of my high school experience, I dislocated my right knee dancing to Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman. Y'all, I don't know who the DJ was at my senior prom, but dude was dropping straight fire all night. And normally during these senior prom moments, during these formal dances, weddings, things like that, they'll drop it down during dinner and play some smooth jazz or some Billy Joel. No, my man just kept coming with the hits. And so me and my friends were like, yo, if he's going to keep the dance floor jumping, we got to make sure it doesn't get chilly. You know what I'm saying? And so we got out there having a good time. I skipped the first meal of my life. And we had a great time, y'all. We're out there acting a fool, and then we're jumping around, and then Man, I Feel Like a Woman comes on. And when that song comes on, for those of you that know it, you have a choice. You either go hard or you go home. And so I was like, let's go, girls. And we got out there. And so I was jumping around like an idiot. I jumped onto my right leg. My knee blows out. I fell to the ground. I had to pop my own knee back in. Then proceeded to drag myself to the side of the dance floor. My principal rushed over to me and handed me 3 ice cubes. To this day, I don't know if those are for my glass of water or my inflammation, but either way, very sweet, very sweet. Later on in the night, they played the track Just Bust a Move. Remember this track? You want it, and you got it. Well, I played that track, only everybody at my senior prom was like, hey, just bust a knee. That's disrespectful. And 100% true. My friends, these embarrassing stories, when we share them, they remind us that we are resilient. Whether we recognize it or not, they remind us that we are resilient, and we have to remember that we are resilient, because if you don't believe you're resilient, the next time you're faced with something hard, uncomfortable, you're unsure of, you'll be less likely to try, you'll be less likely to start, you'll be less likely to love. We have to remember that we are resilient. You have been through things and have now typed them to strangers on the internet, okay? You have been through things and you can laugh about it now. In the moment, it was horrific. You wish it happened to anybody else. But today we get to laugh because you're fine. Because you're fine. That's what 2020 is. We're all going through something right now. A lot of times 2020 feels like we're going through the stages of grief over and over again, right? I mean, how many of you have felt angry? How many of you have felt sad? How many of you tried to do some bargaining of like, well, can I try this? Or maybe just a few of us. Could we try that, right? How many of you have felt acceptance at some point? How many of you felt all of these different stages of grief? We're kind of going in and out of them in various ways. But no matter what, we must remember that we are resilient. And so that is why all we need to do is keep pushing, keep moving. Literally no problem on earth has ever been solved through silence and stagnation. So we got to keep moving. Also, when we share these embarrassing stories about ourselves, they also help remind us and help us own who we are. But no, I'm that friend during these late night conversations that's always like, oh my gosh, we're having so much fun. Now let's have a deep conversation. Are any of you deep conversation starters in your crew? If so, smash one of those reaction buttons. You know who you are. We're the kind of people, when people laugh, we're like, and you're like, I know. How do you define happiness? Right? Like those are the kind of individuals. We got some of y'all out here for sure. And so I'm the deep conversation starter in my group. And there's a question that I ask my friends that I'll ask you right now that goes a little bit deeper into the idea of owning who you are. It's a very simple question. What's one lie that you tell yourself every single day? What is one lie that you tell yourself every single day? No, I'm not talking about, oh, I'm going to work out. I'm not talking about, oh, I'm not going to hit the snooze alarm 3 times tomorrow morning. I'm not talking about, I'm not going to text her. I'm not going to text him. I'm not going to text them. I got some of y'all with that. I'm not talking about, I'm not about to finish this whole sleeve of cookies. No, my friends, finish the cookies. Tomorrow is a new day. No, I'm talking about the deeper lies. The deeper lies that we all tell ourselves. For example, a lie that I've been telling you on all of these calls. I don't know if you noticed, but your boy been looking fresh for all these calls. You know what I'm saying? I ironed a shirt. I got the beard looking crispy. I got the hair coiffed up out here. Yes, oui, right? I'm out here looking fresh because this is a shell I needed to put on. This is a shell I needed to put on because I'd be afraid if I didn't look cute that you'd be more focused on how unattractive I am than on my message, because I have a low self-esteem about my physical appearance, and I always had. And so I needed to put this shell on today because I needed to win. Because every single day when we wake up, we need to win. So if we need to lie to ourselves a little bit that day to win, my friends, I think that's okay. I think that's called being a human being. And quite frankly, we're allowed to be one of those. But we all know the phrase, fake it till you make it. But if all you ever do is fake it, you never really make it. And so that's why we have to start owning some of these lies. And I don't know what some of your lies are, right? I love this over in the chat. I appreciate you, Jonathan. How many of y'all love the phrase, I'm fine, I'm fine? Your head is actively on fire. You're like, no, it's head's on fire Tuesday. You didn't get the memo, Marcus, okay? Right? Like, I'm fine, I'm good. How many of you also say the phrase, I don't need to ask for help. I can do it myself. Right? I will do it myself. Those kinds of things, right? Those kind of things. Brahman, I love this. I can fix anything that goes wrong. The small stuff doesn't bother me. What people think about me doesn't matter. Oh, that's a punch in my heart right there. I am not emotional. I am not emotional. Right? Exactly, right? We know these lies. And maybe lies is too strong of a word. I think it's real, though. We could just call them stories, though. What are the stories that you tell yourself? How many of you are like me and you tell yourself things like, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not hot enough, you're not rich enough, you're not successful enough, you're not independent enough, you're not happy enough, you're not whatever, skinny enough, you're not this enough, you don't have enough followers, you don't have enough clout, you don't have enough experience, you don't have enough this. We tell ourselves this over and over and over again. So much so that we start to believe the stories that we've made up in our own heads. But no one knows about your stories, friends. No one knows what stories you tell yourself. No one knows what's going on with your finances, with your physical health, with your mental health. No one knows what's going on with your family. No one knows what it feels like to be you in your skin on a daily basis. And since no one knows those kind of things about us, every single one of these stories, every single one of these lies is a different brick that we carry, and we owe it to ourselves to live a lighter life. So I don't know what owning your lies looks like. Sometimes that looks like me driving inappropriate speeds down the highway, windows down, I'm blaring Panic at the Disco, and I'm openly weeping, okay? You judge me if you need to, my friends, all right? Sometimes it also looks like me sitting 7 feet across from a woman named Sarah who looks a lot like a counselor, because it's me sitting in a room with my counselor named Sarah. Because sometimes I need to talk to somebody who doesn't know me. Sometimes I need to talk to somebody who doesn't have my whole history at their beck and call. So when I tell them I'm kind of in a funk, they tell me, oh, well, you used to be happy. Why don't you just go back to being happy? Thanks, Mom. You tried, right? But it didn't work. Sometimes we need to recognize that. I know for me, one of my biggest fears in life is that I'm a burden to other individuals. And so I won't put my stuff on other individuals. But if I paid you, buckle up, right? Now we're both getting something. And that was the way I got over it for me. In the United States and many countries and many cultures, we stigmatize counseling. I think we need to stigmatize people who don't go to counseling personally, but we'll get to that. The thing is that in this world, many of us are good people. And so what that often also looks like is that many of us are pharmacists. where we pass out the drugs. We pass out the drugs, and the drugs sound like you got to take care of yourself. You got to practice work-life balance. You should advocate for yourself. No, you're attractive. No, you're beautiful. No, don't think that. No, you're this, you're that. No, you got to try this. You should try this. You go here. No, you're worth it. You deserve it. I love you. I believe in you. But we never take the drugs that we pass out. Right? Pharmacists are pushing the drugs. They're not taking them themselves. And so at some point in time, we need to own who we are. We need to own each of those bricks so that we can work on them, because we deserve to live a lighter life. Because you need to own who you are so you can be real to other people. Authentic leaders frequently revisit their purpose. They own who they are and they are real to others. But being real is fascinating, pretty much, especially since the dawn of social media. I wonder how many of you all are like me. I currently live in Minnesota. And I have some friends up here that love to post pictures of themselves on Instagram, standing next to palm trees for like 9 or 10 months out of the year, okay? And I tell my friends, I'm like, listen, you went to Miami like 16 months ago, all right? There's no way. You got to start posting your pasty pictures like the rest of us. The whole world knows that Minnesota is where palm trees go to die, okay? Right? I also have friends of mine that love to post pictures of themselves standing next to cars that aren't theirs. And I'm like, yo, bro, nice Bentley. Last time I checked, though, you drove a Toyota Corolla and not a new one. No disrespect to Toyota Corollas. It's a fine, reliable automobile. I'm just saying that's not your Bentley, because you can be whoever you want on the internet. We all know about the highlight reel that is social media. But you can also be whoever you want when you walk into that meeting. You can be whoever you want when you apply for that job and that interview. You can be whoever you want when you ask for that raise. You can be whoever you want whenever you're in that one-on-one. You can be whoever you want whenever you ask that person out on your first dates. You can be whoever you want whenever you're trying to make that friend as an adult, which is always awkward. You can be whoever you want. And so my next question, after what's one lie you tell yourself every single day, is what version of yourself do you allow others to see? What version of yourself do you allow others to see? I'll share a quick story. I worked in higher education immediately after graduate school, and one of my roles was that I needed to help hold students accountable to the judicial code on campus. And so one year we had a student that was doing a bunch of dumb things. He was ripping down bulletin boards with event information, and he was ripping down fire extinguishers and playing with them. He was drawing things on the walls. There was nothing we could do, and so all we could really do was slap him on the wrist, because it was all hearsay. We didn't have any cameras. Then one day he did something a little bit bigger, and he stole a whole bunch of stuff from the university bookstore, and he got caught. Clearly an issue. So we sat down, my supervisor and I sat down for this conversation with this individual, and we asked him first, so why'd you do it? Right? Maybe there's a story here. Maybe there's some financial troubles. He couldn't afford the books. Maybe there's something going on. Let's hear the story. He looks us back then in the eyes. He's like you've never done anything wrong. I was sitting there like, yo, bro, I was like, you're never going to be a lawyer, right? Your Honor, like you've never done anything wrong. Okay, I rest my case. It's not going to work for you. Well, my supervisor decided to one-up him though. And she said, actually, I haven't. And I wanted my job. So I sat right next to her and I was like, it's very true. I can see your halo, right? But he obviously knew that she was lying. So he calls her out. He's like, okay, sure, lady. So you've never done 38 and a 35. You never sent a text while driving. You never jaywalked. You never refilled your soda when you weren't supposed to. Things that most of us have done. I know I have done in the last week. And so he rattled off this whole list. And she said, no, I've never done any of those things. And I'm sitting right next to her in my head like, who the hell is this? I'm over here like, who are you trying to be right now? Just yesterday, you and I were doing 75 and a 55 up the west side of Manhattan, bumping to DMX and taking selfies. And y'all, this isn't me complaining about that moment. I was having a good time. Dare I say, I was losing my mind up in here, up in here. All right, it's an old reference. You catch up where you need to. But the thing is, my friends, is that I didn't mind the moment. I was trying to figure out who she was trying to be. And I watched this student shut off. And the reason why the student shut off is because as humans, we can't learn from people who are perfect. We can only learn from people who are imperfect. As humans, we can't learn from people who are perfect. We can only learn from people who are imperfect. And in that moment, she tried to teach through perfection. But when we try to teach through perfection, when we try to teach strictly through the rule book, it doesn't lead to learning. It doesn't lead to growth. It only leads to shame. And shame is not an effective tool of change. Shame does not, shame only begets more shame. It does not beget change. And we can quote Brene Brown till we blue in the face right now if we want to, right here. And her work has been incredible around shame and the effect that it has on so many of us. But what we need to recognize at the end of the day is that being real is powerful, especially right now. At a time where people don't have it all together. At a time where people aren't sure what's happening, right? We got people who are multitasking because we got toddlers running around while they're in the middle of trying to run reports and do all these things. They're trying to homeschool. We got other individuals that are like, okay, I'm supposed to be in the office, but now I'm the only person in the office. This is weird. It's like 30 cubes and it's just me, like, hi, right? Like, why am I here? We have individuals that are going through all of these different experiences right now. They're having loved ones that are getting sick and they're not allowed to go see them. They're having whatever it is, right? My partner and I are having a baby sometime in the next 6 weeks, y'all, and we're really excited about it, but like, it's scary. It's super scary. And so in this moment, we have the opportunity to be real to each other. And what being real looks like is sharing a little bit of our story. Now, this does not mean that the next time that you have a conversation with a group of individuals and you're in front of the meeting, I don't need you to be like, everybody, I got something to say. Nope, some bearded guy told me I was supposed to do this. Not what I'm talking about here, friends. All right. But what I am talking about is that just like we were talking about last week, when it came to courageous feedback, giving courageous feedback often starts with us sharing a story of a time where we slipped, where we struggled, where we didn't realize that the impact that what we would have, that what we did or didn't do would cause, and what we learned from it. Right? We share that story to create a human to human moment. And we let individuals know that, hey, this is a place where you can try, where you can fail, and also where you can win. And we got you. Creating these moments of realism is critical because no one needs you to have everything all together. That is a pressure you put on yourself. There are no fields, pretty much no fields that demand perfection. There's only one that I can think of. It's my neurosurgeon. I never want to hear my neurosurgeon go, oops. Right? Like, gonna need perfection from my neurosurgeon. But other than that, the pressure of perfection is something that you put on yourself. When instead, what you could put on is just being real. Moments of like, hey, this is hard. Hey, this is tough. Hey, I'm also struggling. Moments of like, you know what? I don't have the answer to that yet. But, I hope that I can get it for you in the next 48 hours. Or, hey, I'm going to try to work to figure that out for you. Right? But we don't have to have all the answers right now in our hands. Yes, Mary, progress, not perfection. Right? These things are important. Being real with each other matters. But being real, it takes vulnerability. Vulnerability is a scary word. There's a reason why I waited 45 minutes to say it. It's because vulnerability is so often seen as a weakness in our world. But if vulnerability is such a weakness, then why is it so damn hard? Let's have a moment of honesty. It is easier. It is easier to not ask for help than it is to ask for help. It is easier to avoid and compartmentalize than it is to own and confront. My friends, vulnerability takes courage, and you are courageous. We have to practice a little bit of vulnerability right now. And what that looks like is do it in one-on-one settings. Like I said, I don't need you to start crying from the rooftops, right? Brene Brown talks about how vulnerability for vulnerability's sake is not healthy, right? And that's very true. But in these moments, you can share a little bit of yourself one-on-one moments. Start there with people that you trust. You don't have to carry everything yourself. No one wins an award for doing it all by themselves. Okay, it's not a bigger medal at the end of this thing called life. And so when we think about authentic leadership is also, it's about leading authentically, and it's also about listening authentically. Leading authentically and listening authentically. How are you hearing individuals? 2020 has been an incredibly powerful year for society. More people are listening now than they ever were to a lot of the atrocities that are happening to different parts of our country, to different groups in the United States and really around the world. And so what I want you to think about is, in conversations, are you more interested in being right or what is right? In conversations, are you more interested in being right or what is right? Because a lot of times we don't authentically listen to individuals, especially if the way that they talk to us doesn't sound like our own life experience, right? Like, well, I've never experienced that, so there's no way you have, right? Sometimes we need to ask ourselves or ask somebody else, what if that is true? What if what they said is true? What if their experience is true? Just because it's not mine, does that mean it can't be theirs? Authentic leadership involves us trying to revisit our purpose and let it serve as a bulldozer that pushes us through some of the frustrating aspects of leadership. It also involves us owning who we are, recognizing the stories that we're telling ourselves and how they are impacting us. My friend Stacy Nato likes to say, we need to fact check our inner critic. I love that quote. That helps us own who we are, right? Fact checking our own inner critic. We need to do that because we deserve to live a lighter life. We also then need to be real to others. You were not hired because you were the most perfect. You were hired because you were the most trusted. You weren't hired because you were the most perfect. You were hired because you were the most trusted. And that means that you are allowed to mess up. That means that you don't have to do everything perfectly. It does mean that you need to learn from your mistakes. It does mean that you need to take responsibility. Those kinds of things, absolutely. But how can we be real to each other? We do that through vulnerability. And we also do that by being authentically curious about others' experiences through listening. Because what is right is more important than being right. My friends, this has been so special getting to spend this time with you. For those of you that have made all three of these, I'm going to launch this poll. If you haven't made all three of these, you can still answer the second question. I'll launch that right now. The second and the third question, you can answer those. But for those of you who attended all three, I'd be curious your answer to the first one. So if you could fill that out. Did it pop up? Poll popped up. Amazing. Thank you all so much. So here's what I want you to know is that first off, I welcome the opportunity to stay in touch with all of you. If you're interested in staying in touch with me, that would be super special. And so what I'll put in the chat right here is a way for you to kind of just get to hang out and whatnot. If you want to connect on social media or LinkedIn, or if you want to hear my podcast, I just dropped a podcast called Diner Talks with James. And it's about the deep conversations that we have with friends over food that we probably shouldn't be eating. It would be really special if you checked it out. But I would also welcome the opportunity to come and work with you if you're interested. If you think any of these messages, all three or one of the three, could be relevant for your people, let's have a conversation. Y'all, I would love to help. Also, I'm going to hang out for anybody who has questions right now for me. As always, I stay on here for a while afterwards. And so I welcome the opportunity to answer any questions that you all may have.